Hello everybody, welcome to Technic Tuesday. Today we're going to be making a window slider card which folds flat to go in an standard envelope, but when you pull the little ribbon at the side it reveals an extra little slider message in a window underneath. It's pretty neat, I felt. So let's get started and I will show you how to do this. As always, the measurements and the directions will be in the bottom. There are a few little special cuts that you need to pay particular attention to. Not complicated, as long as you follow along, it's all listed out, the measurements and where you cut to and from. So let's get started. So we need a piece of cardstock, 8.5 by 5.5, pretty standard. And then 2 pieces of white. This one is 4 3/4 by 3 3/4, and this one is 4 by 2 3/8. These are the ingredients that we need to make the slidering part of the card. The cardstock gets scored at 1/2 inch, well, at 1/2 inch and at 4.5 inches. So I'd already gone ahead and done that. And then what we need to do is fold the score lines and give them a good crease, because we're going to be cutting it down the front of the card. And just for reference, the piece that has the 1/2 inch tab on it, that's the front, because then that folds underneath towards the back out of the way. So let me just go ahead and give that, I think I've done that hole. Depends which side of the paper trimmer trough it falls. So this is the piece, and then what we need to do is we need to do some cutting. So I'm just going to stand up so I don't get my head in the way, because I do need to pay attention to where I'm cutting it myself. So I have the flap on the right hand side, and then you need to put the left hand corner at 4 3/4. So we'll line it up at 4 3/4, and then we're going to cut down from 3/4 to 4 3/4. Now the good thing about the Stampin' Up paper trimmer is the blade doesn't start cutting until you press it in. So we're lining up the line on the cutter with 3/4 inch, and we're going to cut down to 4 3/4. So once you've got it in place, then you can press it in and slide it down, and you can see where the 4 3/4 mark is, and you've got a nice cut line. Then what we need to do is go across to 7 1/4 and do the same process. So we're going to line the cutting blade up with 3/4 inch, as you can see, press it in, and then we're going to slide it down to 4 3/4, and when this line is level with it, you know that you've arrived. And you can see that the 2 cut lines are pretty nice and even. So let me just sit down again and pop that out of the way. And then what we need to do is we need to put tear and tape on this edge, because that's what's going to hold this all together. So let me just get the tear and tape, or my lovely subscribers will be laughing right now going, Alyson's more of a cut and tape kind of girl, and yes I am. So there we go. Sticky tape. We're not going to peel it off yet, we just want it to be in place before we start playing with all the other things that we're going to do with the card. Then what we have to do is we have to weave a little bit between these 2 cut marks. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the piece of white, that's 4 3/4 by 3 3/4, and we're going to put it on the paper cutter, line the left hand side up to the 2 inch mark, and we're going to cut, not all the way, but really pretty far up. So probably just about 1/4 inch or so, not cut, just like that. And then we'll take it carefully and pop it off to one side. Then what we need to do is from the inside of the card, we need to pop this little 2 inch piece. It's the shorter piece. It needs to come through from behind and then it needs to go back down and through. So we've woven it on the back side, just the 2-inch piece. So what we need to do now is line this up evenly between the 2 score lines, and we need to repair this. It's the only way to get it through. So I'm just going to take some regular sticky tape and fix that. And then because this is a little bit cut, I don't want it to get compromised and torn from being moved backwards and forwards, I'm just going to stick another piece of sticky tape on that. It's all on the inside, so it can't be seen. And then as long as we have it lined up with the edge, then we know it's going to move backwards and forwards. So it's looking pretty good right now. Then this little piece is what goes underneath and gets revealed. It's the one that these greetings are on. So as you move the window backwards and forwards, you've got the 2 sides of the greetings, and they're pretty much half and half. So as long as your paper will go in there, you can just pop it in, hold it down and pull to be sure that your card still slides. And then we'll take this out, and we need to put a greeting, one on each half. I'm going to use an old hostess set, which used to be wood mounted, and I decided that I would take most of my stamps off wood and put them on to make them cling, so it could go on the acrylic blocks. Stampin' Up! Do sell the strips of the sticky that will make that happen, and if you'd be interested in something like that, just message me and I will be able to help you and give you any tips that I've discovered along the way. So I'm going to use the Memento black ink and just make sure that it's inked up nicely and it gets stamped on one side of the, this is half and half. So then I just need to peel it off and put it away. And now I can't even remember what the other greeting was on the other side. Oh, sending you birthday wishes, which came actually from the March paper pumpkin set. So we'll peel that off its cellophane because it's a polymer stamp, put it onto the acrylic block, ink it up with a Memento ink and stamp it on that side of the greeting. So when the main front slides backwards and forwards, it just reveals one or the other. And we just need to peel the greeting off, pop it back on its cellophane, and that just gets put away. So the next one we want to do is the birthday greeting on the front. So I'm just going to pop it on the acrylic block, and this one I'm going to do with the Flirty Flamingo ink to match the Flirty Flamingo cardstock. So just need to ink it up nicely and stamp it. Really rather nice. And then it's going to get punched out. Now that Stampin' Up! Used to have punches like this, and then they changed their format, but I had this one and I didn't see any reason to rebuy it in a different shape. It's one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So working from behind where you can see where you have it all, I'm going to punch that out of just a piece of white cardstock, and then using the new style of punches, I am going to cut a 2-inch circle out of the basic black. And this one locks away. It's a little bit thinner, of course, as you can see, compared to this one, but they both do a splendid job. And like I say, I wasn't going to replace something that worked perfectly well. And then we just need to attach this to its little greeting. So let me just go ahead and do that so I don't lose one of the halves. There we go. So it's all nice and ready. Now we just need to do some assembling. So I'm going to stamp using the Flirty Flamingo around the edge of the front of the card. And again, this little stamp set I've had since forever. It was one of my favorites. It's actually got a 2000 copyright on it. So it's fairly old, like me, I'm fairly old. So we'll use the Flirty Flamingo ink. And just stamp some little flowers around. There we go. Very nice. So we'll pop that ink away. Actually, no, I shan't. Somewhere around here I did have another little flower, but we'll add those a bit later. So this one obviously doesn't come off its block. It just goes back in its little box and gets put away for later. So now we just need to be sure that this will go under here and be an appropriate greeting and slide. So what we need to do is line this up with the edge of the card when it's as open as it can be. I sometimes use the 2 cut lines because it just gives you an idea of where you need to be. And just a little dot of sticky in there to hold that down while we pull this out of the way, and then add a strip of adhesive to hold that down, and then push it closed, and then pop that off and put a whole strip of adhesive down to make sure it stays in place, because we don't want that wandering when this one is pulling backwards and forwards. So what we need to do now is, in order to have the pull mechanism, we need to have this little notch cut. So while it's still an open card, we're going to fold that in half out of the way. Fold this so we've got the front and the back together, so we know they're going to match up. And then we're going to take the little 1-inch hole punch and just cut a notch, using obviously just part of the punch. So then when this comes back out, everything's nice and even. So what we need to do now is pop the ribbon on here, and it needs to be where the little notch is cut. So make sure this is even. We're just going to pop a little bit of adhesive on the edge, and then we're going to take some of the black and white gingham ribbon, stick it on that little bit of adhesive. We'll just hold it in place until you can come in with a stapler and fasten it a little bit more securely. So we're getting there, guys. So now this is how it will look when it's open, and what we need to do is get the other greeting, which again is another one of the paper pumpkin greetings. Pop it on its block, bring back in the Memento ink. I'm going to stamp that a little bit higher up, so it just leaves a little space where it can be signed by whoever you send it to. Doesn't go, who on earth could have sent me this fabulous card? It must have been my lovely stamping friend. So there we go. We've got most of the bits done now. Just going to add a couple of extra little flowers, which again, I'm going to use a really old stamp set. This has 2004 copyright on it, but it's got such a cute little flower. And I just wanted to add some flowers to there. And one underneath. Pop that back in its box, and away it goes back into the retired cabinet. And then we're just going to pop the greeting on with some dimensionals. 1, 2, 3. My usual trick of flinging the backing papers out of the way until later when I have to go and find them and pick them all up again. And last but not least, we are going to seal the card together. So now that we know we don't need to move it around anymore, we can peel off the tear and tape. Just hold it down quickly in place and seal it closed. And there you have it. Another lovely window card. Same as this one, of course. And any birthday greetings you have would just do a lovely job. So there you have it. Window slider card. All the directions and cutting sizes will be in below. If you've enjoyed it, a like always goes down well. If you want to subscribe, I would absolutely love that. If you press the bell, you'll get a notification on a Tuesday that I've posted another video. And thanks so much for watching.